Welcome back to the Pregnant Christian Environmentalist Podcast. This is only episode number 2. I cannot talk about it enough how excited I am that you're listening right now. I love to learn, love to share, and love to inspire, and we got a lot to talk about. We left off last time with me not telling my family yet that I'm pregnant. It went so well. I am now with my family in California, about to leave, but the trip has been amazing. It was so funny telling my family. So my family is, I would say, more on the reserved side. You know, we have our inside jokes, fun, great people. We have a good time. But we're like a bit quieter compared to Riley's family. You could probably assume that, being that Riley is more of the rambunctious one and I'm kind of just chill, you know? So we thought that, you know, my family would be super excited, which they were, but like more chill about it because, I don't know, this is grandchild number 12 or something. And we thought Riley's mom was going to absolutely flip her crap. She does not have any grandchildren yet. She talks about wanting them all the time. She's so excited. So, okay, obviously we were assuming the reactions. When we told my family, oh my gosh, there were screams, there were tears, they were so loud. I have never heard my family so loud before. My mom screamed. She was so excited. It was so fun. We couldn't stop talking about it after, and we have not stopped talking about it, so I have a lot of information to share with you. Also, hello, how have I not told you yet that they're going to be here on the podcast in just a moment. I am interviewing 3 sisters plus 1 extra sister, Ash, who I've grown up with. We'll get to that. But Riley's mom, oh my gosh, was so quiet when we told her. I think she was in shock. Now I understand why. She had so much going on in her mind. Like, oh my gosh, am I going to go out to Hawaii to be with this baby? What does being a grandmother mean? How much time is this going to take? Like, she was almost so excited and so overwhelmed that it silenced her. And trust me, she is not a silent mama. So we were shocked when she was in shock. It was really funny. Their reactions were complete opposite of what we expected. So yes, on the podcast today, I'm going to have Janie and Sarah are my 2 older biological sisters. Janie has had 4 at-home births without any intervention. She is a stinking expert, and she's about to have a 5th in 2 months. Yep, she's gonna have baby number 5 at home. She has so much wisdom to share, and can I tell you, I am so relieved that I finally told her. She's the one I messaged a few weeks ago or a month ago asking about what I can be eating, and I said, I'm asking for a friend because I hadn't told her yet, and she totally believed me. She had no idea I was pregnant. So we've already been chatting a lot on this trip. I've had so many questions, but I'm saving some questions for her soon to be answered on this podcast so you guys can all learn. I also have Sarah here, my other sister that does not have any kids, but she is the smartest person I know. No, really, I think she almost got a perfect ACT score. She knows so much about health, does so much research, but also went to medical school, is a nurse in the hospital. She's worked in the emergency rooms, the non-emergency rooms, worked with kids. She knows all the ins and outs of the human body, but get this, is totally on my ancestral health train. How can I even say that? She's the one that inspired me to be on it. I ask her all the questions. She does most of the research for me, which I'm very grateful. I actually, in the past, have had her help me with my blog on my website, and basically so much information I get on health that I share on my social media accounts are from her. Just the fact that she knows the Western medical belief side and the Eastern, she actually did spend a year in China, and the holistic, all the things, and combines all the knowledge and weighs it out. I seriously feel so blessed to have her in my life and just ask her all the questions once again. I also have my sister who married my brother, Maddie. She is actually also a social media guru. She has the cutest little daughters, Taya and Elise. She also shares our beliefs as a family. I feel like she's more in the know about what products are in rotation, what brands are out there. She's just quite a researcher. I feel like Janie's more on the side of traditional. She's had so much time with midwives and doulas and knows so much from them. And then Maddie is, just being in the social media world, she is in so many debates and conversations online with other moms and learns from that and compares and contrasts. And so I'm so excited to have her to ask questions from too. And then lastly, we have Ash, who, why is she on our family trip? Because she's basically my other sister. No, seriously, Ash hangs out with my family when I'm all the way home in Hawaii. Me and Ash grew up together. We were basically side by side through all of our childhood. She ended up marrying one of my brother's best friends, which was so fun. So they're both here and they have two also incredibly cute little girls. It's kind of ridiculous how cute all these kids are. Isla and Winnie. Something about Ash is that she has been working and raising these daughters, and I can really see myself doing that. I think I can keep a lot of work at home, but I think Ash and I were actually so similar, maybe because we did everything together growing up. We both have that desire to work and just stay so busy, and I really think that a lot of my parenting style will be similar to her because we both are just such go-getters that we want to be pursuing our careers and raising our kids the right way at the same time and finding that balance, and for sure having to say no to our jobs to get more time with our kids. But I am very inspired by her, how she has made it work with the kids and she's still pursuing her career. I mentioned how many grandchildren my mom has earlier. I am one of 6 kids and I am the last born. So I do also have my sister Tara. She is not here today. She is the oldest and she also has a son. So guys, I just feel so lucky to have such amazing people to ask questions from. Also, of course, my community on the North Shore of Oahu that is just so stinking healthy. Every time I leave the North Shore, I don't know if this is bad to say, but as I'm not there right now and I just see what's on the shelves of grocery stores and the shelves of people's houses and just get out of that bubble, I think, wow, I am seriously surrounded by the healthiest people. Everybody cares so much about their bodies and living healthy lifestyles and staying away from toxic things, and it shows. I swear everyone in my community is freaking gorgeous. The moms are all ripped. I don't know if I can measure up to that, but I am just so grateful that I have so many amazing moms to ask all the opinions from, and that is one of the reasons why I feel so inspired to start this podcast, because I love sharing this knowledge. I feel so lucky that it'd almost be selfish to not tell people that don't have that privilege. And sometimes I forget people don't have that privilege until moments like when I hadn't told anybody I was pregnant and I was trying to learn from Google and the doctor. Oh my gosh. First of all, didn't learn anything important about pregnancy in school. God forbid we learn about our bodies in our education system. Pretty much everything on Google ended with just ask your doctor. And then we talked about in the last podcast how talking to my doctor went. So guys, ask me questions I haven't answered yet and learn with me, because I know I still have so much to learn and I can't wait to keep sharing. So I'm technically about halfway through week 9 of pregnancy. How have I been feeling? No more hurt boobs, which seriously I am very grateful. That was very inconvenient. My ears have not been popping as much. I swear it has to do with the pregnancy, because that is the weirdest side effect ever. I even told Sarah about it and she did not have an answer for me, but luckily that's been happening a little less often, but it's still happening. I have still been so terribly exhausted, and unfortunately it has made this family trip kind of boring. I'm the boring one and I think too much about it. I just really do feel bad, especially because my best friend of all time, Ash, is here and I can't play with her little girls that I haven't seen in so long, and I can't do all the things that everyone's doing because I'm seriously bedridden for most of the day. I've been getting up to go on a walk with them. I've been getting up at least to play games, but I really am that exhausted, and it's such a big bummer, but I'm so grateful that I've still had zero nausea, so it could be worse, and I'm so glad that it's just the exhaustion. So we're in Carpinteria, California, which is where my grandparents are from and where we go every year to see family. A good old tradition is to walk over to the candy store, Robitaille's, to Tyler's Donuts, or go up to Santa Barbara to get some McConnell's ice cream. Guys, sugar to me is so icky right now. I have zero desire to eat sugar. I can't make this up. I can't actually deny that I love sugar. Candy's not normally a weakness for me, but ice cream and donuts, yeah, I definitely partake every year in Carpinteria. But now I truly have zero desire, and you'd think it would just be sweet things in general. Maybe I just have savory cravings, but actually what I want is fruit. I can't stop craving fruit. So when everyone's eating ice cream, I truly swear I am enjoying my grapes or raspberries or whatever it is just as much as them. I'm eating it like it's the most delicious, refreshing thing I've ever had. And another very odd thing is that I am craving veggies. I'm craving salad. So anything cold and refreshing, it's just dessert to me. But if you're in my close circle, you know that that is shocking because I actually don't really eat traditional vegetables. If you don't know much about ancestral eating, that would probably shock you. But there is a lot of study behind why actual cruciferous vegetables are harmful to your health. I know that sounds crazy, but there is science behind this. And something you do have to realize is a lot of what we call vegetables aren't actually vegetables. I mean, cucumbers, tomatoes, avocados, those are all technically fruits. They have seeds in them. And then I do eat root vegetables, so potatoes, carrots actually do hurt my stomach, so I don't eat those. But I'm talking cruciferous vegetables, so kale, broccoli, spinach, Brussels sprouts, those really bitter, harsh greens, I have completely cut out of my diet, and I can just personally give the testimony that it has drastically improved my life. My bloating is gone. I feel amazing, and if that's not the case for you, then keep eating your veggies if you truly love them. But the science behind it is that these really hardy leaves, seeds, grains, they have defense chemicals. So there's phytic acids, oxalates, sulfur, things like that. These are defense chemicals that are there to keep animals from eating them. They're bitter. They're supposed to deter animals. They're really bad for your thyroid specifically, which controls your hormones. And so of course you think, and this is what I thought when Sarah, shout out Sarah, was first kind of educating me on this. Of course I thought, oh my gosh, what is going to happen when I cut this out? Where am I going to get my vitamin K? Where am I going to get my fiber? I'm going to die. Our entire lives, we've been told to eat these things, which there's crazy history behind why, but no time to get into that now. So if you look up the nutrients and minerals that are in vegetables and try to look up, okay, what other foods have these items? Oh my gosh, they're totally in other foods, especially animal products. And the crazy thing is, because of the defense chemicals that are in these harsh greens, they actually make the vitamins and minerals, not all of them, but most of them, not bioavailable. So your body doesn't even absorb them when it eats them, unless you steam them and cook them like crazy, and it kind of decreases the amount of these defense chemicals. So that is a brief answer into the science of why I actually don't eat literal vegetables. But trust me, I load up on my produce, and especially with these cravings, I just haven't been able to say no to salad. It's been so good. I'll never forget my friend Amanda, she's Brazilian. The salad she made actually didn't have leaves. They were bell peppers, again, fruits, not vegetables, and cucumber and onion. She would just chop up produce and make an amazing dressing and mix it all together. And so that's kind of what I've been going for, is Amanda salads, basically just big chunks of produce. I love me some bell pepper, and it is just the most cold, refreshing thing ever. And again, I'm sure I'm craving this for a reason. By the way, a lot of people do cut out nightshades as well. I just am not on that bandwagon yet. I've done my own research and it just looks like there's such mixed reviews that some people, especially people with autoimmune diseases, do really get affected by nightshades. Some common ones are tomatoes and white potatoes. I feel great with them, so it is of course really important to listen to your body, and they're technically fruits. I believe that fruits are meant to be eaten. They're meant to be eaten by animals in the wild. Their seeds are meant to be spread across the land, so I truly do believe that they are good for you. Wow, I did not plan to stir the pot this early in the podcast, but pretty quickly here you are gonna find out that I'm not a vegan, and I do believe we need to eat animal products to get all of our necessary nutrients, while being an extreme animal lover that is extremely passionate about caring for the planet and being an advocate to others to do the same thing. So just a quick brief summary on the subject of why I believe this is okay. And if you haven't heard this now, then you're going to soon, because the revolution of vegans that are fully switching to what I call ancestral diet is wild. It's a movement. I've personally met many ex-vegans that started scratching their head and saying, wait, why do I have to take a lot of supplements to feel good and get all the necessary nutrients I need? Plus, all these supplements are processed and they come in packaging that's normally plastic and has loads of fillers and preservatives. Yes, fun fact, I did try being vegan for a short time and my stomach problems got way worse. Sharing my personal testimony about how I've actually gotten healed by the ancestral diet will be for another time, but in regards to sustainability, I do believe we've been lied to. There has been some documentaries put out that just convince us to not eat meat, and I very much believe that there's agendas behind them. The big corporations with the big money that have patents on seeds, aka Monsanto, GMOs, all the things, if they can convince us that eating the cheapest to grow foods that they have patents on is way healthier than relying on livestock, then that's going to do big things for their wallets. I do believe that the stats are just straight up lied about. I did look it up just for the segment and found that livestock should be responsible for 2.6% of greenhouse gas emissions in the US versus transportation and power plants, which account for 29% and 28%. And that agriculture, farming, is responsible for 10%. But aside from those percentages, which that livestock percentage is pretty low, we gotta eat what we gotta eat to survive and be healthy and thrive as human beings. If you haven't heard before, talk to a nurse. And if you care about the planet, your heart's gonna be broken when they explain to you how hospitals are and how much plastic and waste they use. And so we don't need to wind up in there and be relying on them for our health. But Big Pharma and Monsanto surely wants us in there. Something I found through research that either proves we are being lied to or proves that livestock is not that bad for the planet is that since 1961, the gas emissions from livestock has declined 11.3%, and yet since that year, the production of livestock meat has more than doubled. What does break my heart is seeing how animals are treated in the meat industry. I believe it is horrific, and I will go off about how we should try our best to buy from local, sustainable meat sources that treat those animals with respect, and that does reflect in the health of the end product as well. I remember when I heard that avocados were now getting canceled shortly after palm fruit was canceled in the environmentalist world. It had to do with the emissions, and I just thought, you can't cancel a fruit. God created this wonderful item that is perfectly packaged and full of nutrients, and man messed it up. We're the ones that are just looking at the numbers, trying to get a profit, and growing those in a completely non-sustainable way. Monoculture farming, deforestation, those are the culprits. And if you're a vegan and you're eating fruits and vegetables that are adding to emissions, then you're to blame too. I'm sorry, but no matter what, food has a carbon footprint and we need to choose what's healthiest for us. And the most sustainable way to eat is to try and grow as much food as possible. I know that's not attainable for everyone, but can I at least say it's something to try and strive for? It's something to try and have a goal for in your future, is to have a little yard where you can grow some fruits and veggies and herbs. Maybe even have some chickens. I can speak from experience. It's not that hard. And next best thing is to buy locally. It's hard to find unbiased research out there because, again, the big corporate guys don't want us to find this information, but the number of nutrients and vitamins that are in animal products, including raw dairy, honey, eggs, meats, is insane, and they include some nutrients that you can't find elsewhere. So if you're a fellow eco activist and you've always believed otherwise, please just ask yourself, is it possible that Cowspiracy and so many of those documentaries we've watched have been agenda-led and maybe have lied to us? Is it possible that it's not our fault that cows fart and there's far greater problems to tackle right now, and maybe the bigger problem is food addiction and we can find other ways to try to get humans to eat a bit less? Ask yourself, do we animal lovers hate on the cheetahs and the beautiful carnivore animals that feed on gazelles as just a beautiful part of the circle of life? We need balance, we need to buy from sustainable sources, and we need to stop getting hypnotized by big players like the FDA that is in bed with Big Pharma, that is in bed with Monsanto. I would love to deep dive into this when it goes back to normal broadcasting. We just talk about being a Christian environmentalist with a bit less of the pregnancy stuff. Okay, so now let's continue on. I've definitely learned quite a bit more just through my own research and through talking with family. Who knew you weren't supposed to have retinol when you're pregnant? That's in a lot of skincare products. It actually can be really harmful for a baby. Really crazy to me that is not public information. I had no idea that most places won't give you massages. You're supposed to be, I guess, somewhat careful with deep tissue massages. There's also some certain workouts you're not supposed to do, like the common plank, but you are supposed to exercise. And I guess way back in the day, they told you not to. That has been completely debunked. Actually, quite the opposite. Studies are showing that the more you work out, actually, the more your body will bounce back after and can even lead to quicker labor. But of course, you have to listen to your body. You're not supposed to push yourself hard. When you get super exhausted, you're supposed to stop. I guess a good way to indicate that is you should always be at the state where you can have a conversation while you're working out. I've also learned that it's really important to get a lot of vitamin D, so I have been sitting out in the sun and enjoying that. It is really hard for me to just nap. I have a hard time not feeling like I'm wasting time, but now that I am so fatigued, it's a bit easier to go out and take a little nap in the sun and get that vitamin D. I've been running really hot, so since I've actually known for a while that you're not supposed to shower off the sun right after because it takes a few moments for vitamin D to absorb into your skin. So it's been a weird balance of taking my sun naps and then staying gross and stinky for a little while before taking a shower. But I definitely want to make sure that I'm absorbing every bit of that vitamin D. Oh, and one last exciting announcement before we get into my little interview with the sisters. Day one of getting to California, I got to meet up with my old friend Jenna. I told her the big news and she just stared at me wide-eyed and said, "Me too." Oh my gosh, we're both pregnant 2 weeks apart. We got to relate so much on how freaking exhausted we've been this whole first trimester, and now we get to relate for the rest of the pregnancy. I can't believe I have a good friend that's only 2 weeks difference from my due date. Too bad she's all the way across the Pacific Ocean, but we're only a phone call away, and I'm very excited about that. Okay, let's get into our sister panel. I've got Janie, Sarah, Maddie, and Ash here. The guys are in the other room playing Mario Kart on the Wii. That is such a high school throwback for me. Most of the kids are sleeping, but we might hear a little bit of action in the background. So guys, I'm going to ask each of you a question, then I've got a question from Instagram I thought you could all chime in on, and then let's do some popcorn questions I've been curious about at the end. So guys, let's start with Maddie. You mentioned earlier on our beach walk that you regret not having a doula for Elise, your second. Did you have one for Taya? And then why do you regret not having a doula?
So for Taya's birth, I did not have a doula, but our environment was really different with her labor because I labored at a birth center with her. So the birth center was just, it lent itself to just a really comfortable labor environment. And I had constant midwives there with me, attending to me, and it was actually super nice. It was a really nice place to labor. But yeah, with my birth that I had this year of Elise, I was in a hospital, and it was just really hard to make that a really comfortable environment, I was also in a different situation this time where I had to be hooked up to a lot of wires and stuff. I was being induced. And so that just did make it a little bit harder for me to be able to get myself into the positions I wanted to be in, to be able to like really labor down. And I just felt like if I had a doula there, she could have done the things that I needed to have done that I didn't have either the brain power to think of while I was in labor, that my husband wasn't aware that could help me. And there's pressure points that she could have been pushing to help with actual like physical pain and just all sorts of things. I think that a doula also would have been really great leading up to the birth, just to help with knowing how to get the baby in a good position, help with various ailments that I dealt with too during pregnancy. They're amazing for things like that leading up to birth. And yeah, I just think she would have known my body really well and helped me maybe to even have gone without an epidural, even though I was being induced. Who knows?
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Maddie. Janie, I'm already impressed. She's knitting while we're chatting. A blanket, right? Mm-hmm. My question for you specifically is generally, what's the number one reason you'd recommend home birth? And maybe you could touch on, what about if you're far from a hospital? Because I will be the same distance from a hospital if I did a home birth as you. You live in a gorgeous valley tucked away in the mountains. Also, this is a third part, so I could remind you, but will you say again what you said earlier today about how your midwife has done 3,000 births? You couldn't remember the specific number, but you said how many times she's had to take people to the hospital and finish the birth there, and the number was so low out of 3,000, which was the craziest thing for me to hear. So I guess that's not a question, but can you remember roughly how many it was?
I don't remember. Yeah, it was very low. And I don't know if that's the number of transfers in general or just emergency situations. But when she told me, just the emergency, like really dire situations, like how low that number was, it gave me confidence in staying at home. And the number one reason I chose home birth, there's many reasons.
What's the number one reason you'd recommend it? Because you're an expert at this point, so
it is
looking back.
Hospitals for me, probably because of our experience with our dad spending so much time in the hospital for cancer and stuff, it's just very negative feelings when it comes to hospital. And even when I'm just walking in one to visit someone, the way it makes me feel is yucky. So the thought of bringing my children to the world in that kind of environment never felt good to me. And also my husband's very supportive of a home birth, and his mother did home birth, so it was just something that was very natural to him. And when he talked about it with me, it just seemed like it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it's so comfortable. I love the fact that there's never this wondering, do I go to the hospital now? Is the time now to leave? What do I do with the other kids? It's just the baby will come. When the baby's ready to come, I'll just be at home. You know, the kids can be here, or I can call my mom or mother-in-law to be with them here at the house. And it's just a much more, I feel like, calm, relaxed experience.
Yeah, I heard in a podcast that women instinctually tend to give birth because we're nesters, when they're in a safe environment. But I guess that can go both ways, because some people might feel safer in a hospital.
Exactly.
So have you heard that before?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I don't necessarily believe home births are for everyone. Some people, birthing at home scares them, and so that wouldn't be the right environment to have kids. And I also think you and your husband really need to be on the same page about it. He's your main support during that process. And if he's not confident in it, that's going to affect the way you feel giving birth. Which kind of leads to how you didn't ask this question, but it's very important the people you choose to be with you while you give birth. Don't be willy-nilly
People pleasing.
about it. Don't just be like, oh, this person would really like to be here, so I should do it. You need to do is best for you, and realize that the way people feel about birth is going to affect the way you give birth. So careful about that. And which kind of, you didn't ask me about doulas, but it's how I feel about doulas too. You need to make sure if you're going to do that, it's someone that you feel really comfortable around, because again, how they react to situations is going to really affect doulas and midwives, is going to affect how you get. So it's not to put a ton of weight on that decision, but it's a big decision. I guess it would be for doctors too.
Yeah.
If you choose to go the doctor route, make sure it's someone you feel comfortable with.
But then in a hospital, you have a different nurse every couple hours, so you don't really get to choose that.
It's definitely harder, and you definitely want to have a spouse or a doula,
a
or
team.
hopefully both, that is totally on your team, advocating for you and aware of what you want to happen.
That's good. Okay, I'll go to actually Sarah next, and then you, Ash. Sarah, so we have our opinions on vaccines, right? Actually, I think everyone here is on the same page. You mentioned earlier, I actually, in the previous podcast, mentioned I researched and found different numbers on how many vaccines kids normally get these days if they just go with the protocol. And the number is crazy high, but it was counting like to 16 years old. It was in the 50s, or I don't even know. But you mentioned earlier actually that an infant right out of the womb is just getting one vaccine. So which one is that? Why would you recommend avoiding it? Because I know you'd recommend that. And do infants get more later on the next checkup? Is that the normal protocol? And why do you recommend not getting these? I know that's really hard to answer. But if you could just say one thing off the top of your head why it's not good for a newborn.
The shot that they give right after birth is hepatitis B shot.
So just that.
That's the only one, that they give immediately. I don't think that is necessary. Your baby just came out of the womb. Like, why are we injecting it with something? And hepatitis B is a sexually transmitted infection. And so if you are not exposed to those kind of things, you have a single partner, you're married, whatever, having your baby, the risk is nil. So there's no reason that you need to be getting that vaccine, especially right then and there.
Yes.
Like, you have your perfect little baby that came out healthy from the womb. Let's not be injecting them with anything. That's not necessary, and that's definitely not necessary. Then they start getting shots. I don't know if it's at 1 month or 3 months, but that's when you'll take your baby back for their checkups every few months, and then they start getting lots of shots. Yeah.
So that's what I hear about, the one shot, but there's actually 8 vaccines in that shot kind of thing.
There's multiple. I think it's 4 is the max that's in one shot.
Okay.
But still, they'll get 3 shots in total, like 7 vaccines or something like that.
Okay.
As they grow older. And my biggest thing, there's a lot of debate and stuff and about the science of vaccines. Yeah. And the most simplest explanation I tell people, and which gets the gist across, is I don't trust Big Pharma. They're corrupt. That's undeniable. Everyone knows that Big Pharma is corrupt. And vaccines come from them. They're the ones pushing it. They're the ones running all the studies and everything. And I just don't trust them. And it doesn't make any sense to me to be giving my child all sorts of these vaccines all at once when it's not tested that way. They're not tested all as a big group, and babies just don't need all that all at once, or ever, potentially.
Yeah.
Depends on what you believe, but especially not so young. Like, they're just vulnerable little things. They're growing and developing. Personally, I'm just against any foreign substances being injected into our bodies, whether it's as an infant or an adult, but especially in these little vulnerable infants.
As a Christian too, some of them have aborted fetal cells.
Yeah, so you can go along the religious lines. Not all of them, but many of them come from aborted fetal cell lines. So if you're a Christian and don't believe in those kind of things, then that's a good religious reason why you don't want that. And there's plenty of like health and science reasons why that also is not good. To have other cell lines being injected into your body.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's a good
But that's what I like to say. If you try to get into the science, you're going to get into with other people. They're going to debate you to no end.
Yes.
Because they think they're right, you think you're right. That's why I skip over if I'm just having a general conversation summarize. And I'm like, I've had this conversation with a doctor who was absolutely 100% pro-vaccine. And there was no way I was ever going to convince him otherwise. But he respected me and my opinion because my argument was corruption. I don't trust them. I don't want them injecting anything in my body. And he's okay, I get that. I respect you for your decision because you were just choosing to fight against corruption, and he respected that. And I was like, that's just a simple way to fight against this. I just don't trust them.
Yeah, and you're in the hospital, so sounds like you have your argument ready.
Yes,
keep it peaceful.
Exactly. I deal with this all the time. So.
Yeah, nice. Asking the right person then. Ash, I already learned about gestational diabetes. It sounds, obviously it's not crazy common, but common enough that in my little bit of research I've done, I've already learned a bit about it. But would you want to briefly explain it? And yes, I definitely plan on getting tested for it, but I heard that you can do it in a more natural way than normally they give you like a syrup at the hospital. So I'm for sure going to get that test probably soon. But would you want to briefly describe it and then say your experience and any advice you'd have for it?
Yeah. So gestational diabetes is basically just you get diabetes when you're pregnant. It's just a problem with your placenta, and it just impacts your ability to handle like sugar and glucose. And usually what happens is the second you give birth to your placenta, your gestational diabetes is gone and the rest of your life is just normal. But it's just so interesting. A lot of women have been getting gestational diabetes when they have no family history of it and live pretty active lives and just no risk factors, and then just end up having gestational diabetes. And it's really frustrating and plays a huge mental toll because it's so scary. If you've never had to look at blood sugar before and then suddenly your OB or midwife or someone tells you that you have gestational diabetes but doesn't educate you on it, suddenly it's this huge responsibility where you have to watch every single thing you eat and keep track of your sugars and make sure that you're not harming your baby and yourself. And it plays a huge mental toll. For me, at least, it was a lot of anxiety around that. And what happened to me was like I just got a phone call telling me I had gestational diabetes and that I should meet with a dietitian. And that was my education on it. And so I had to do a lot of figuring out what that was myself and asking other people that had it before and learning from other people's experiences. And they hooked me up with some other specialist doctors that I had to go to. And it took a long time for me to find someone that would listen to me and understand that I was so confused because I live such a healthy lifestyle. Otherwise, like, why would I have gestational diabetes? And this person, I found one person finally that was listening to me and helping me like advocate to do the test again and just make sure, because the test can also be a false positive for other reasons. You could be stressed that day or not had good sleep or whatever. Anyways, I guess what I would say is make sure if you do get a positive gestational diabetes test to just know that there's resources out there. One of them is an app that I downloaded. I think it's pronounced Malama. It's Malama.
Hawaiian word.
Is that?
Yeah, Malama means to take care, so maybe that's why they call it
Maybe that's
that.
why.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and it was free to download, and it helped me keep track of and understand what I was eating and how that affected me. And based on the data you put in there, it would generate a meal plan for you. which was awesome.
That's so cool.
And then the other is the Glucose Goddess. I don't know her other names, but on Instagram you can find her, Glucose Goddess. She has amazing tips for keeping your blood sugar under control, and she has 2 books that I got, and that helped me understand what was going on so much.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know if you had other questions. I can't remember.
No, that was so good. Super helpful. Sweet. My one, this just in from Instagram question, which is funny because I haven't posted that I'm pregnant, of course, at this point in time, but I got a question from Katie. She said, okay, actual favorite cotton period underwear. Have you heard of any that are good for postpartum? So I know my favorite is Awa. I actually already responded with that. But have you guys used any for postpartum or have favorites? Anyone?
You bleed for so long, so heavy. I think they would be helpful.
It wouldn't be helpful?
I think it would be, but I don't know if it would catch it all. You know what I mean?
Really?
I think in the beginning,
Yeah.
you wouldn't use them.
You need like a diaper.
You need the...
Okay. But
They haven't invented that one yet.
Up to like 6 weeks after
Yeah.
giving birth, like that's common. So it obviously you're not usually bleeding that heavy.
I was going to say, not that heavy for 6 weeks. Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
so as it tapers off, I have definitely
Yeah.
gone to my cotton
Period underwear.
underwear.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it would be nice just in the beginning to wear that underneath your pad, like to have
Yeah.
a pad
Oh.
with
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
that, just to catch.
Because it's very likely you overflow.
You could potentially do a smaller pad with those.
Yeah.
underwear so that you
Just
don't have
try a couple
gigantic-
things.
Because
Yeah.
actually, those giant pads can kind of be painful after.
They sound rough.
They're not super comfortable.
Yeah, I wish
know.
there was a better option because they aren't comfortable at all. It's
Yeah.
the same reason why I don't like to wear pads or any of
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
stuff because they're usually itchy.
You're already
and
like
uncomfortable.
sore down there.
Yeah.
You're feeling, like, this
Sounds
bulky
dry.
material and- yeah.
Ooh, right away though, if you did a ice pack
Mhm.
with a period underwear,
Oh, those
that
are
might
great.
be a good
That
That'd
combo.
be nice.
Yeah.
Does that slow it down or just for relief?
Just because the ice packs don't catch your blood, but
Yeah.
it feels good. But so you have to wear something underneath it anyways, so you might as well.
Oh, I get it. Okay. I'm sure Awa, my favorite brand, is good for that then. And Modi Body is a really good one too. For a couple of my questions, can somebody just explain the difference between a doula and a midwife? Because I actually don't really know.
The quickest way to sum it up is a doula is focused on you as the mother giving birth. A midwife is focused on the baby
Oh, wow.
coming out safely. That's how my midwife and my doula explained it to me.
Cool. Okay. I like that. Did you say earlier, did you call your midwife a medwife?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
She's more medically minded.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like more, I don't know if that's the best way to put it. But she works in a hospital. She doesn't
Yeah.
do home births.
Yeah, not as much of a naturalist, kind of.
Not as much of a naturalist, but very much more supportive than many typical OBGYNs of my more naturally minded birth plan.
Okay.
So she was super cool with delayed cord clamping and like, you know, all the things. Me pushing in an unconventional kind of position. If I wanted to push the baby out on my hands and knees, she for sure would have helped me do that.
Sweet.
That sort of thing. So she was a nice balance.
It's really nice to have, if you know you're going to be in a hospital, having a midwife too that's really adapted to the hospital environment. Because a midwife that's more adapted to home births, if you do get transferred to the hospital, they'll come in and be with you, but it's not their environment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, fun one. Can you guys make me feel more confident about my choice to drink raw milk? Because I feel like if I really publicize that, I would get some hate. The number one thing people say is don't have raw fish, raw soft cheeses. But we love our raw milk. I'm so sure it's probably one of the best things I could be having right now. But any addition, like how do we know that we're not going to get some sort of foodborne illness? This might be a Sarah question.
Literally, it depends on where you get your raw milk, but most of the places that are putting out raw milk, at least in Utah where we are, they're testing their milk, and their standards are higher than your regular pasteurized milk.
No way.
They're testing it, they have high standards, and if it doesn't pass the test, they don't give you the milk.
Because they have a lot of eyes on them.
Yeah, you have more chance when you're getting it from a reputable source. You have more chance of getting food poisoning from your spinach than you do from your raw milk. It's just a silly thing to be afraid of. Yes, there's a risk, but there's a risk with breathing the air outside too.
Or getting in your car.
Exactly. It's a risk you have to feel comfortable with, though. If you are scared about it, then don't do it. But it shouldn't be scary. It's very safe. If, again, depends on your sources. I can't vouch for any raw milk anywhere.
Of course, it needs to be tested.
It's also just so nutritious, and it's a great way to get in calories when you're not feeling like eating a lot of things.
Certain
it's just like got protein, it's got sugar, it'll give you energy, it's got healthy fats, and all the living probiotics and enzymes and everything. So it's just an excellent food to keep your calories up and keep you going while you're pregnant.
Yeah, it's definitely nice when I'm not craving certain other things. So.
Yeah, unlike pasteurized milk, which is inflammatory.
The opposite.
I'm just dead.
And dead. Yes.
Not a lot to
probably
get from
will
it.
cause lactose issues.
It's also just milk. It's not that deep.
Don't judge me. Don't come at me. Not that deep.
Exactly.
It's so funny. I already get comments, just no one knows I'm pregnant, and people are like, I can't believe you drink that stuff. We'll see. More broad, does anyone want to chime in on some benefits of having ancestral eating beliefs during pregnancy? Anything come to mind?
Protein.
Yeah.
Like, protein is so important when you're pregnant, and when you're eating ancestral, you're eating a lot of good meat.
Yeah.
I just think, what could go wrong? Like, that's a really great thing.
Back to the gestational diabetes thing, like I ended up having that diet pretty much anyways to keep my sugars down.
Wild. Helpful.
Just if you start out eating like that, then you're probably not going to have gestational diabetes, and it's probably what you'll end up doing.
I've seen some photos. Obviously, everyone is different, and you do you, but I've seen some photos of placentas from vegans versus high protein. Have you guys seen those comparison photos?
Yes.
Wild. It's like just crazy different looking.
They're
One
like
looks
this
like a
beautiful,
dried
deep
jerky.
red placenta from people who are eating
Protein,
more,
meats, animal products.
Not always what you want to eat when you're pregnant, though. So
I know.
good luck.
Yeah, I've definitely been craving raw cheese and raw milk, though. Just a little bit less meat, which is so weird. But we actually don't have that much time, but I'll just ask a couple more. Anyone have their favorite naturalist beliefs, resources? Jay, what's the name of the book you gave me?
Mama Natural.
Mama Natural.
Genevieve, what's her name?
Pregnancy handbook, yeah. Is it like
I feel like that's the Bible of all of this. My go-to.
it's just a nice
Week by
quick
week.
go-to.
Because I got that recommendation from a friend, too.
I also have been enjoying, I don't know if we can say enjoying, but been using Paul Saladino, all his organ supplements throughout the pregnancy to help with iron. Liver is naturally a good source of folate.
What were those like affirmation cards you gave me?
Oh, yeah.
Those were also from Mama Natural.
No
I
way.
loved those.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing.
Just like beautifully written affirmation cards that I just had my husband read me like every contraction, and it really actually helped my mindset.
Any influencers or bloggers? Any more resources you guys love?
Shirley Parsons, she's a great one.
I feel like Noelle Kavari too is pretty good. Eating through pregnancy and postpartum. She also has some supplement that I've used.
There's a podcast called The Birth Hour. That's the one I was trying to remember to tell you. The Birth Hour. 953 episodes. It's just birth stories. Just a fun way to
just hear different situations.
It's a great resource just for learning.
Okay, that's
things
good.
that can happen.
Okay, last question. What are some things, again, maybe Sarah, you can chime in on this. What are some things on top of your head right now that a doctor or a nurse would naturally do with the baby right after birth if you don't keep a close eye. So we've been talking a lot about this. Obviously the vaccine, but
scrubbing them clean.
So what are some things I want to write on my birth plan? I don't want this. Obviously, I'm going to do my own research and see if I really don't want these things, but what are some of your guys's? Scrubbing them clean, because
that's the very first thing. We're going to try and wipe all the vernix off.
That goop is good, right?
The very first thing is they'll try to cut your umbilical cord super fast.
And you don't want that.
It's best to do, it's called delayed cord clamping. It really, even if you just wait 5 minutes.
Yeah.
They get that last
better.
bit of nutrition. Oh, wow.
And skin to skin. Just have them place the baby right on you. They don't have to take it and move it to the table and do all the things right away.
Okay.
They'll also they'll do an eye ointment and a vitamin K shot, which I would say just do your research. I know moms who, I really don't feel the eye ointment is important. The vitamin K,
That podcast series by the shots or whatever.
She talked about
She has a whole episode on the vitamin K shot, so I would recommend if you want to do some research on why not to get it, then you could look that up.
That's
it's
wild.
free.
It sounds so just simple and natural.
Yeah, and that's what they're going to present it as. But
Yeah,
there's more
it's
to
a
it
trail
than
or
they're going to
something.
tell you. And that they even probably know, but there's more to it.
Yeah, there's always
My
more to it.
midwife told me too, I haven't asked about it in a while, that it's if you have a traumatic birth that it could be more important.
That's what's fascinating to me. When things go wrong, do I stick to my opinions? So I'll do tons of research, but
The book I gave you too, she has a good, I would say very unbiased chapter on vitamin K shots.
oh,
I
interesting.
think the eye ointment is in there too, in the same spot.
Yeah,
Just
Ash, you mentioned the eye ointment
why
too.
you would do it and why you wouldn't do it. So.
Okay. Is that it? Sounds like those are the ones I've been hearing.
And they don't need to take the baby unless something's wrong, but they don't need to take the baby out of your sight the whole time.
Yeah, they might try to put the baby under the heat lamp. That's why it's so nice to be able to just have the baby
hold
skin to
them.
skin and wrapped up you guys both in a blanket just to keep the baby really warm so they don't have to take the baby to go under a heat lamp. There's various tests. There's actually a lot of tests that they do on the baby, which is fine. It's just ideally they keep the baby in the room while they do those so you can watch and
They can keep the baby in the room.
definitely keep the baby in the room. Or have Riley follow them.
Yes.
Wherever they take the baby, say, Riley, go follow them.
Yeah, at least that. Thanks, guys. That was a lot of good stuff. And time flew. But maybe you'll be getting calls from me in the future for more podcasts because you guys have so much information. But you'll at least be getting texts and calls personally from questions. So thanks for joining. It was fun to have everyone together.
Thanks for having us, Ro.
Bye.
If you guys are curious and have questions for my sisters as well, send them over and maybe I'll feature some of their answers here on the podcast. But you can't swamp Sarah with questions because that's my job, okay? She's my sister. And before concluding this podcast, I would love to add a recent study done on pasteurized versus raw milk. They actually tested both milks, sent them into the lab to test for pathogens and bacteria. The results were so shocking that they thought that the milks were swapped, so they actually tested it twice. The raw milk only came out with one bacteria that was non-pathogenic, aka totally okay to ingest, and the pasteurized milk was loaded with harmful bacteria, one that's actually super harmful called Bacillus cereus, and plenty of others that are pathogenic. That is wild. And I think it's pretty clear the answer why is that, once again, as we talk about, raw milk is this beautiful God-created package of enzymes and fats that work together. So raw milk has those probiotics still that haven't been heated up and killed that can fight off any bad bacteria that could show up in the milk. So fun facts, and I can't wait to keep learning and jump on here next week. I hope you guys loved my second ever podcast. We'll chat soon.